Welcome to The Big Break Show, a podcast where we discuss short-term rentals, entrepreneurship, life, mindset, and everything in between. Here are your hosts, Rafa and Jesse Vasquez.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of The Big Break Show. I am here with the same guy I'm always here with, Mr. Jesse Vasquez. What's up, brother?
What's going on, my friend? How are you doing today, man?
Living my best life. What are you doing?
Oh, not much. Just here living life, talking about what episode we're on beforehand because we have so many freaking episodes, and I can't even believe we're at episode 38. Can you believe that?
I can't do your whistle. Hey, I got it.
Hey, you got it. There it is. So yeah, you know what? You guys, today we actually had our old friend Madison Rifkin, and she is a woman entrepreneur, super young, but very talented and smart, who actually started this business when she was freaking 12 years old, like legitimately started a business when she was 12 years old. And fast forward to 12 years later, today, she's funded by VCs. She's grown this business. And the great thing about this, you guys, is that she wasn't necessarily connected to the short-term rental space, but she's attached to herself to it in a lot of ways, which is going to be super helpful for us as entrepreneurs and as short-term rental operators to make our businesses better. Right, Rafa?
Yeah, I'm super excited. I'm actually going to schedule a call with her after this because she's offering some really, really good stuff for all these operators out there. After this episode, guys, if you're thinking of getting started or already started in short-term rentals, you need to talk to her. She's awesome. I really hope you guys enjoyed this episode. It was one of the funnest conversations I've had in a long, long time. So, without further ado, Miss Maddie Rifkin.
What's going on, you guys? I'm super excited today. We have Miss Madison Rifkin, also known as Maddie. That's what I've always called you by, is Maddie. And Maddie, Rafa, we all met, and I always bring this up. I bring Clubhouse up too often, but that's where we freaking met in I met Rafa in 2020, and I think, Maddie, we met you right around the same time, right around 2020. Yeah, so give our audience a little bit about what you do and how you operate in your space in the short. You're connected to the short-term rental space. It's not necessarily your business model, but it kind of attached to it. We'll talk about all that stuff in a little bit. Tell us who you are, Maddie. Break it all down.
Absolutely, yes. Thanks for having me. I am the CEO and co-founder of Mount. I'm a young entrepreneur, I guess a lot of people say, and really just here to disrupt the way people travel and live, and everything melded all together. So excited to see where all that can go. And I've been on this founder entrepreneurship journey since I was 12 years old. So that's 12 years. Yeah, I think that math is right. Since then.
Maddie, tell everybody what Mount is.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Sorry, I realized I left that part out. Mount is essentially a software platform that can take anything you own and we turn it into a rentable amenity. So specifically what that means, because that's quite a broad statement, is going to narrow it down for the short-term rental industry. We basically take that owner's closet and we open it up to your travelers. So whether you have bikes locked up, surfboards, skateboards, kind of all the fun stuff that you can't monetize right now, we step in with that software platform and allow you to monetize it and open up new revenue streams as a property manager.
I love that.
You made it sound so just like, it's really easy. We're just going to have a closet. You just open shit up and then all of a sudden there's everything there. All right, cool.
Essentially, we've gotten to the place where it is pretty easy.
All right, so I'm going to unpack this because you're saying this stuff like really fast and there's way more detail that we got to bring into this. So, okay, you just talked about you're 24 years young, which is, when I was 24, Rafa, you and I were probably taking beer bongs and Maddie's
I was in
over
Vegas
here
every other weekend, kid you not.
And Maddie's over here at the age of 12, freaking being an entrepreneur. Okay, so break that down. Where are you from? Like, talk to us about your childhood a little bit, and then let's get into that 12-year-old entrepreneurial Maddie.
Absolutely. So I grew up in Denver, Colorado, kind of right outside the city because it's a massive suburb area. And I'm a triplet, so was always with my two other sisters. And grew up in an entrepreneurial family. My grandfather started a company back when he was young, and heard fascinating stories about that. And grew up in an environment where, it was okay to take risks, invent new things, try new things. When I was 12, Mount started as a lock company. And so my dad helped me buy a welding tool, whatever those are called. And I was welding bike locks onto bikes. And I thoroughly freaked out the rest of my family. But that's where this whole thing started.
That's very cool. So a couple things. First of all, you're a triplet. That's cool. I didn't know that. So let's touch on that because I'm a twin, and so now I always like having conversations about this. But you're a triplet, which is like better than a twin, right? And so, how does that affect like your entire relationship with your business, your family, and everything? The fact that you're triplets.
Honestly, I think it's kind of given me a unique perspective. So I'm the oldest of us three. There's three sisters, but only by a minute. We were C-section babies. But for some reason, I think I have had this unique like leadership perspective where we all went to the same school. We transitioned to high school. We're making friends, but I think I was the person that they turned to in times of need and got us through some interesting life experiences. And so I think that gave me a unique perspective on I grew up in a team. So translating that to being a young CEO wasn't too challenging. And that's kind of how I run Mount.
I love that. Yeah, one of the questions I was going to ask you is how it affected you, like your relationship with them, because with me and my brother, like we bounce ideas off of each other all the time, like constantly. And anything that I do, like he'll push me forward or he'll tell me like, yo, it's kind of stupid, don't do it. But we're very, very different in terms of personalities. Do you guys find yourselves the same way where like each one of you is a different personality, or you three like the exact same, like introverts, extroverts, like just outgoing? How is that with you guys? I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, definitely we bounce ideas off each other, but I think it is because we're all such different human beings. Like we are not the same personalities. I'm talk fast, very outgoing, and they're more introverted, methodical about what they do. One's actually very into fitness and a Pilates instructor and growing that business, so entrepreneurial there as well. And then my other sister is in marketing, a more stable job, and took that route of life. So kind of all different. We're all in different areas of the country, so it's fun.
You know what? I have a question because this is probably stupid, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. And Rafa, and since I've never actually talked to you guys about this either, so have you guys ever like took each other's, like your sister had a test and you were better at math and you went into her classroom, and like you guys aren't identical, I'm assuming. Rafa and his brother, like they're like, you guys are super, other than the long hair, like I can't really tell you guys apart that much, but Maddie, you guys aren't identical, are you?
No, I wish. We always joked about like switching classes because I was math, they were better at the English and reading and writing and stuff. And yeah, no, we could not have gotten away with that. We don't look that similar.
Because Rafa, I'm sure you like dated, you guys went on dates with like different people, stuff like that, right? No?
No, dude. No. Yeah, me and my brother are identical twins. We look a little bit different now as we get older. We started kind of changing our appearances a little bit more. So I have a little bit different features. I'm a little bit taller than him now. He has long hair. He's a little bit shorter. So plus, I got really into like fitness when we were, I want to say around high school more than he did. So it changed our physical appearance as well. But we never did the whole like, hey, you take my class. But it's funny, when we were growing up, my mom would dress us the exact same way all the way till about sixth grade. And people would always get confused. Like sometimes I would get pulled into the wrong class, so it's kind of funny.
Yeah, that is heck of fun. Well, Maddie, we always have people on this show, and they're like, "Yeah, I was an entrepreneur. I, was selling pogs. That's what I did when I was, 15 or 14 or 13. I was cutting the neighbor's lawn. I was doing all that stuff. But you were actually out there like welding shit and doing like actually physically putting something together. So where would the idea from Mount Locks come from? Like, why was that a thing to you?
Yeah, great question. So just to like set the background real quick, I went to a school called Grayland Country Day School in Denver, and they had this unique program. It was called the Gates Invention program, which I don't think a lot of schools have, but it basically allowed you to work on before school, invent things for basically the entire school year. And then at the end, you would do like a Shark Tank style pitch to these judges that came from Colorado somewhere. And then, you could win the competition if they liked your pitch. So that's what I was doing when I was 12 years old. And the reason I created this bike lock was actually out of necessity. So I would bike to school a lot, or just bike around Denver. It was very outdoorsy. I just grew up kind of active. And, but I was so forgetful. Honestly, I'm still forgetful to this day, and just could not remember my bike lock or the key to the bike lock. I always forgot some component, and my mom, it drove her crazy to no end. And so I was done getting yelled at for forgetting things. And I'm like, why can't the bike lock just be part of the bike? That just makes so much sense. To this day, it still makes sense to me. So I don't understand why no one has like taken what I built and solved that problem. But that's why I welded the lock onto my bike. Then I couldn't forget it. And I was like, oh, this is a pretty cool idea. I could probably make this into a product. And then I did that. And then I did the Gates Invention program. So that's kind of how it all started. I won that program, got a patent for the lock, and then have that. And that's kind of how this whole journey started.
That's awesome. So can you touch a second? Because I think the last time we talked, I remember you were doing more the scooter based stuff, right? Did that change now? Because talking to you, it seems like that's completely changed now. Or did we just not talk about the other stuff
This is the
at that
beginning.
time?
We're at the beginning of her
No,
journey
so
right
that
now.
was, yeah, this is the beginning. No, that's okay. I'll walk you through how it got to where we are now. So yeah, the lock kind of lived in my back pocket for a while because I didn't really do much with it after I won that competition. But then I went and studied entrepreneurship at Northeastern University. And they had us building business plans and all this theoretical stuff. And I'm like, that's useless. It's a waste of my time. Let's make this real. And so that's where the lock came back into play. I'm like, I have this patent. Let's do something with it. And so I rounded up a few people in my classes and was like, hey, like, let's make this non-theoretical. Let's make it real. And so that's when Mount Locks was born, was actually at Northeastern. And then from there, we just made a ton of pivots. So you're correct. During that time at Northeastern, I jumped into the micro-mobility like scooter market when it was brand new. Back when it was just in California and it was just Bird and Lime being baby companies. And it was really because I thought they needed a lock. They caused a lot of chaos. They still do. And actually, they have locks on their scooters now in a lot of the cities because cities required it. And so that hunch was correct. That's kind of the catalyst of this all. And then we just kept learning. And I think one of the biggest takeaways I had from the scooter market was that their customer base is predominantly tourists. People love getting on these things and exploring. They're not using it as a commuting tool because it's not economic, like it's quite expensive. And so I was like, cool, why are they marketing it as a commuting tool? That seems so backwards. And then during all of this discovery, COVID hit. And I think that's actually when we started talking. And that's when really a lot of changes with Mount happened because those companies cut their staff by 50% or more. All the innovation programs went by the wayside. And with that, Mount Locks kind of, got tucked away because it wasn't thriving as it should be if you're a startup. And I knew that. And I was like, let's pivot. That's when I jumped into the Airbnb world, bought 36 scooters, put them at properties and started operating with that because I was like, if you can put it on private property, they're not regulated. You're targeting the customer, which is the tourist, and that Airbnb host is making extra money. And so that was our kind of premise going into that. It worked really well, but I did not want to be a scooter operator. It was the most terrifying time of my life. I was like, I'm going to get sued somehow. Someone's going to hurt themselves. And why was I recreating being a scooter operator when those already existed and they still aren't profitable? And I was like, that seems silly. But the biggest thing we learned was actually from our hosts. So I'm like really good friends with all those original hosts. I'm actually going to be a bridesmaid at one of their weddings. Like it went very deep. And they came to me and they're like, hey, we love making extra revenue. Like we haven't really been able to do this before, but why does it have to be a scooter? Like I have all this stuff already. You don't have to buy the scooters for me. I just need a way to be able to really sell these to the guest. And I was like, oh, that's such a good idea. And that's really how Mount became what it was by listening to these hosts, these property managers, and giving them what they needed, which was access to new revenue streams.
Yeah, that's super awesome. And Maddie, we talked about this a second ago. For everybody listening right now, if you're getting into the short-term rental space or you're in the short-term rental space, you need to start thinking about the next 3 to 5 years, especially if you're a small operator, because this industry, in my opinion, my humble opinion of being around since 2015, and Rafa, you could probably attest to this, the property management, like professional operators, they're going to be the people that are going to dominate this space, hands down, because they're going to be able to adapt with things like what Maddie's bringing, innovation. Like short-term rentals are what they've been forever. If you think about it, vacation rentals have been around for freaking forever, like literally forever. And nothing's really changed other than the fact that there's a platform for people to list, literally book stuff. It's not just a small pocket of people that are able to book these properties. Like literally everybody has access to them now to rent Airbnbs. So what I'm trying to say is that what's worked in the past isn't going to work in the future. So we have to start thinking in ways with people like Maddie that are innovative and thinking about the forward thinking, but also bringing real life stuff like skateboards or these cruisers, which we'll talk about in a second. You have to have amenities in your property. So everybody listening right now, it's really important you start thinking about the next 3 to 5 and what you're going to do and how you're going to position yourself like now, because this space will be dominated by professional folks, and they're going to have stuff like this, right? Rafa, you have anything to add to that? And before we jump into a little bit more about the short-term space.
No, you're right, 100%. I mean, everybody who adapts, like look at Maddie, she adapted, right? So the reason I asked you the question prior, where you went from the scooters to this, I'm changing the lock for hosts and stuff like that, was because I remember the last time we talked, you were very heavily focused on the scooters, and I remember even I was going to put it in order, and they were backed up for a couple months, which is why I ended up not doing it. And now, fast forward, it's been what, a year and a half, and you're already doing this completely, entirely different business model. And I'm like, wait a second, I don't remember this. And you adapted, right? You listen to the market, you listen to your customers, and now you're solving a very different problem to help them generate more revenue. Same thing with what Jesse's saying right now. When you focus on a specific issue and you listen to what the market's doing, and you listen to what your customers are doing, and you listen to how your business is behaving and how it's doing, you can adapt very easily to what's coming next in the near future, right? You can pivot to, let's talk about the short-term rentals perspective. We can go from short-term rental to mid-term rental because regulations are changing, right? Or because now customers are traveling differently, or now customers are going to very specific locations. And if you don't pay attention to that stuff, you're going to get left behind. But the professional operators that do this for an actual living and know how to find these data pieces and these like key points of data in the market or in their business will be able to figure out where to go next, which is where you're kind of at right now, right? So can you explain a little bit about how now it works with what you're offering to hosts?
Yes, I can. So the way Mount works right now, we have two programs, and it really depends on what type of property manager or owner you are. So the first program is really for someone who is owning or managing 1 to 10 units and has some time on their hands, not a lot, but a little. In that model, you would basically either have the beach equipment, the electric bicycles, the firewood, and you would use Mount to turn it into something that can be rented and paid for by your guest. So you already have the stuff and you just need a way to monetize it. That's our first way. The second way is actually for large property managers, these more professionalized operators who really just want a way to open up new revenue streams, but don't want to add on a lot of work. And so we bring in a professional co-host, which is a term we took from the Airbnb world, but it's a professional amenity manager. So if you have 50 properties in one location, for example, let's say Destin, Florida, and you're like, I want to be able to offer electric bikes to everyone, but I don't want to go out and purchase 100 bikes, electric bikes. That would be a massive expense. We can bring in this co-host. They supply the bikes. They supply the monthly maintenance. They supply all of the management that's necessary to run these electric bike programs. And you just supply them basically the access to your travelers and your property. So now you have an electric bike program. You didn't pay anything for it, and you're getting revenue generated from it. So we took out a lot of the pain points that we had when we were operating scooters.
Okay, I have a bunch of questions around this then, because that is awesome, number one. But I would assume that there's a threshold that you have to meet in order to be profitable and something like that. Because, for example, I have 47 properties within a maybe 20-mile radius, right? That could really be awesome to add to my guests here. But what if only one or two end up saying, hey, I want to use the bike, or hey, I want to use the scooter, or hey, I want to use the longboard, or whatever it is that you're offering? Is there a certain threshold that you have to meet in order for that to make sense for you to be able to continue being the co-host for us?
Yes. So we definitely take a look at your property, and people can sign up and want a co-host, but it's not like you're always going to get approved, because it definitely is dependent. But where it gets really interesting, and this is across the board for any Mount amenity that you're offering, you really just have to get the guest renting it once. And once they do, they typically rent for the entire stay, and they'll rent it every day because they've realized what a great elevated experience they're having. So for you as being the property manager, the owner, all you really have to do is market to your guest, and you'll have a successful program. Whether that be communicating to the guest how to rent it by downloading our app, or texting them during the middle of their stay, hey, have you rented the bike? I think you'd have a great time. Or being like, hey, go to this brewery. You should take the bike. It's really easy to get there. Kind of those touch points that you probably should be doing anyways as a property manager, because I think, when you're talking and communicating to the guest, it adds a better experience. But it's just making sure you do it so that your things get rented, because it's a win-win for everyone involved. You're making more money if they're getting rented more.
So what markets is this available in? I would assume you guys got to have specific locations available ready to go for this type of thing.
Yes, and our focus right now is on the vacation rental market. So pretty much anywhere in California we can service, anywhere in Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, those warmer climate markets that aren't too seasonal. But we are just standing up co-host programs. If you're a big enough property manager and you want to service 50 units, we'll stand you up a co-host program. We will go do the work to make sure you have someone that can help you. So it just is a matter of like how many units you're going to bring us and how dedicated you will be to the program, because we don't really want to onboard someone who just wants free bikes and they're not going to do anything with it. That's not a win for anyone involved.
Got it.
Yeah. What does it take to put a team together? So say like Rafa wanted to put, 10 bikes on his property, like, or something like that, or storage. Like, what does that look like? Like, break that down for us.
Yeah, so we have partners. So for electric bikes, it's fairly easy. We have a partner on the West Coast and a partner on the East Coast, and they will service bikes anywhere in those regions. And then we have a management maintenance company we work with. So they just have to make sure they have a person in that area that can do the monthly maintenance. But it's actually not too challenging because what we do is we actually connect to the local ecosystem. And if there's already a local bike shop that's selling or renting bikes, we'll just ask them to do the maintenance. And we've now just brought them extra business. So we really like to keep everything local so that, we aren't creating that reputation where we're a big conglomerate ruining everything that makes a destination special. We really want to empower the locals to interact and rent and do all that stuff.
Yeah. So, Maddie, have you guys implemented like a QR code system that I can like put up on the wall where like I can put a sign that says, "Hey, if you want to rent bikes in your stay, scan here"?
Exactly. That's exactly how it works. And then we go a step further, specifically if you're using a co-host program. And when they scan the QR code, they have the Mount app, they're downloading and renting the bikes. At the end of their stay, it'll send them an email and it's like, hey, do you want to buy the bike you just rented? They can buy it from that manufacturer. Everyone gets a kickback in that scenario. And it's kind of creating this circular economy.
Wow, dude, I love that. You guys thought of pretty much everything. Cool. Can we talk about what the cost is for the guest?
Yes. So for the guest, it definitely depends on the area because in some areas, if you went to like Yellowstone National Park, for example, they're huge on electric bike rentals. They're expensive. They're like $90 to $120 a day. So we'll price according to that. You could bring in $120 a day. In San Diego, for example, where we operate, a rental is $20 an hour. And typically they rent for like 2 or 3 hours. So you're making sizable money. Electric bikes, that was the other thing we realized. They bring in double or more money than an electric scooter, which is why we've shifted focus more to bikes. We actually have 3 main categories of things we do right now: electric bikes, firewood, and beach bundles, because those are the 3 that have made the most money for everyone involved.
Yeah. Can we talk about what your beach bundles are now? You've got my mind spinning like crazy right here because I'm like 20 minutes from the beach. I'm downtown Santa Ana, like Orange County. Disneyland's up the street. So this is like awesome.
So the beach bundles, we actually did that as a marketing ploy. We put them out on the back of beach chairs and put them in properties because we're like, oh, it'll help get marketing awareness. And then we realized people are willing to pay to rent those because they're going to go pay somewhere else for it. So we basically put in a wagon, 2 to 4 Tommy Bahama folding beach chairs, an umbrella, and a cooler. And then we lock it up and attach a Mount QR code to it. That's what allows it to be rented. And then it becomes a Mount amenity. And so to unlock the lock and get access to it, you have to scan the QR code through the app. You have to pay for it. The app gives you the lock combination. And now you've either rented it for your day or the entire stay. And then you have to bring it back because everything is GPS tracked to make sure it ends up back where it is. It makes management not a headache. And yeah, you're making a ton of money on those as well.
What's the actual cost behind the beach package? And secondly, so we have to have like a designated storage spot in the rental for it, correct?
Yeah, that is the only rub for right now. That is the way it works. You do have to have a storage area for it, whether it be like in your front door area, your closet. We don't recommend putting them in closets because no one will find it. But yeah, somewhere like that. So that is the only rub right now. I mean, where we want to get to is basically being able to connect you to the local rental shop and have them be the facilitator so that if your guest rents it, it would actually just be delivered to them. So then storage isn't an issue. We're just not there yet.
Yeah. Do you find that would be difficult for like a business owner, like of a bike place, to bring in your bikes in there and like instead of selling their bikes or selling your bikes? Maybe you like had pushback from that?
Oh, for a rental shop?
Yeah, for rentals. Yeah. Yeah. Like I'm thinking of like, San Diego or like, Santa Cruz or some of these, where the bikes are heavily rented. And I'm just thinking, like, as a business owner, would I want to have somebody else's bikes? Are you guys getting pushback from that? Or are cities are people pretty open to you guys being in the same place?
No, and no pushback. And the reason they like it is so in that case, we wouldn't bring in our bikes. We actually just upload their inventory as Mount amenities. And they like it because now they're getting access to the travelers they otherwise don't know who they are. So it was kind of this niche problem that we stumbled upon because, I mean, I don't know. The listeners could probably tell us, you guys could probably tell me. But if someone asks you right now, can I rent a bike from you? Do you just have to tell them like, hey, there's a shop down the road, you can go there and you don't get any type of kickback?
Yeah. I mean, I usually provide regular bikes like on my properties that I own. But like I said, now, like I'm starting to think about things different. I'm thinking about, add-ons and things like that. And I think we have to, because especially if you're in a place like Rafa, where he's like, I mean, he's right in the center of everything. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think that makes sense for some people. I'm kind of in like rural Modesto and Lodi, and I think actually there was probably work there too, to be honest with you, because there's wineries and there's like bars and families with kids, like a lot of that stuff. So, and that's the thing that I love about it, is that you don't have to necessarily be. I mean, obviously you're growing your business, you want to start in one area, but you don't have to be in these like huge giant areas. Like there's really cool downtowns all over the place, or people can hop on a bike, in rural America and ride somewhere. So it's like you don't have to be in these destination areas. But I'm sure that's where you're starting now. You're kind of pinpointing those areas. And I think you guys are in Scottsdale too. I remember you being in Scottsdale, right? For that's kind of where you started as well.
Yeah, that is where a lot of our pilots started. That was kind of where the original scooters we had we placed them there. Yeah, that area is interesting because it's so hot in the summer. So like getting on a bike right now would be miserable. So those are like perfect for co-host programs, because the co-host will come and take the bikes in the summer and actually sell them other places. So that way you don't have to buy a bike and hope you pay it off in 8 months.
What does a bike cost?
It depends. If you go through us and our manufacturers, I think the lowest cost we could get you is like $8.99. Don't quote me on that. I could be off 100 or two. But typically retail, if you went with like a rad power bike, it's probably going to be like $1,500. They're pretty expensive.
Yeah, electric bikes are everywhere. Like I was just in Huntington Beach and rented an electric bike, and they're freaking fun and they look cool. Like if you have the beach cruiser ones, they look cool.
So much fun.
They're freaking fast, and I was a little worried on it because I had a couple drinks. And let's actually talk about that now. So what's the craziest story you have with that? And then we'll kind of dive into, well, I want to hear this from you. Like what's one of the craziest stories? Like somebody took stuff and ended up in somebody's basement. Like just lay it down for us, Maddie. Go ahead real quick.
Yes. So this is the craziest story. It has only ever happened once. And I actually only have 2 crazy stories, because otherwise people are very respectful. But I don't know why, but for some reason, these 2 crazy stories happened on my birthday. One, I was turning 22, the other, I turned 23. And so I was clearly not in a state of mind to be answering these calls. But the first crazy one, it was like the first ever pilot we launched. And we had 4 scooters in a mountain town in Colorado. So like pretty low key. Like I didn't think anyone was going to do anything crazy with the scooters. But they had this one guest, and he turned out to be a problem guest, not just for us, but like for the actual Airbnb property. And he had taken a scooter, and at that point I had put a time limit on the scooters, like you can't rent past 8 p.m. because I didn't want drunk people on them because we were doing testing. So he had taken it. It was like midnight at that point, and the host had realized, because she lived on the property, and she called him. She's like, "Hey, where's the scooter? Like, I'm about to call the police. Like, you need to bring it back right now." Because she was like fighting for Matt. And he was like, "What? You're calling the police?" Like, "No, don't. I'm like 10 minutes down the road. I'll come back." But it was like this whole mess. And he ended up calling me. He's like, "I'm getting the cops called to me. Like, what the heck is going on?" None of that ended up happening, but it was just kind of crazy that like it was such a miscommunication. None of that happens anymore because we GPS track things and stuff. But that was one that stuck out. That was like just randomly weird.
How do you guys protect yourselves? Like how does that's what I'd be worried about. Like, being sued.
Yeah. Like what's the liability on these things?
Yeah, I'd say that's the biggest learning we've had. And honestly, the thing that's gotten stronger as Mount has progressed. So originally we started with an insurance policy that covered scooter rentals, and it was general liability. So if someone hurt themselves, they would be covered. Not them, the property and the host would be covered. Mount was covered. We've now gotten to the point where whatever you list on the Mount platform, with some limitations, like whatever we approve to be an amenity, is covered by some type of insurance, whether that be a really extreme case where if someone like dismembers themselves or dies, we have that type of policy. We also have a policy that covers just general rental types, because this is like a rental shop on your property, and are looking to add on even damage protection, so that if you list your like $15,000 golf cart or whatever those cost, that damage would also be protected. And I think the thing we've learned is that these type of insurance policies are like very hard to come by. And you're not going to get one as an individual because they're, thousands of dollars. It just doesn't really make sense. So that's why we took it upon ourselves to do that type of insurance padding. And, you get that with being a Mount host, so that, it's included in the subscription price you pay to use Mount.
Okay, so you said a few things that I want to touch on really quick, because you said renting out your, super expensive scooter or whatever, or golf cart. And so I can actually go out and buy like a quad or something, and you implement it into your system, or do you guys provide that as your system already? How does that work?
Yeah, so the only things we'll supply via the co-host program are electric bikes. That's the program right now. Just because that was like the biggest one people didn't want to buy. But in about a month or so you're getting a sneak peek right now, we're revamping the website. And once you go to rentmount.com, there's going to be a button and it says list an amenity. So you could theoretically click on that and list whatever you want. It does have to get approved by us. So sorry, but if you list a 50-foot boat, that's not going to be approved yet. We're not there yet. But yeah, I mean, if it's within our insurance capabilities, we can totally list that. And it's, if you own it, either at your house or your Airbnb, list it, and then travelers will come rent it. Because where we want to get to in 5 years is basically having that traveler just travel with a backpack. And then they're going to rent everything from like clothes to bikes to golf carts to cars, whatever it may be. They're going to rent it from the locals in the destination using Mount.
Yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that.
Yeah.
Like I'm thinking like beach package, kayak, paddleboard.
Oh yeah.
Towels, beach chairs, a cooler, maybe even throw some White Claws in there. I don't know. Yeah, that's pretty
Oh,
cool.
totally. We've had people like with the firewood, which is more of a consumable because obviously that gets used when you use it. They just have the cleaning people like replace the firewood, and now they have a way to sell and monetize it, and they're not losing a lot of money. They're actually making a lot of money. So that one was really interesting to us.
Yeah, I'd have like a s'more package. It's like, a family s'more package where they get the little sticks, they get the freaking chocolate, they get the mallow, from Sandlot. Then you get the s'more. That would be cool. You guys doing that?
I love
S'more
that.
packages?
No, that's a great idea though. We should include that in the firewood bundle.
All right, there
Yeah.
you go. I get royalties of that, Maddie. I'll take
Perfect.
1%. Thank you. Jot that down. I see you writing right now. Let's go ahead and put Jesse on that.
That's funny. I thought you said smart package. You meant s'more package. Yeah, I was actually thinking the exact same thing. Like the firewood with some like a s'more pack, like a little box with s'mores for like the bonfire at Seal Beach or something, or Laguna Beach.
Yeah.
With, you can provide like the whole chairs, the towels, the coolers. You just need a place to store that, right? Something that I was thinking about too was like propane tanks for barbecues. Can you guys provide something like that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm going to be honest, I don't really know how those work, but I don't see why not.
Yeah, I mean, you got to refill those, right? So like I provide them, but then they get empty and I have to have somebody go out there and refill it. And I don't like asking the guests to do it because then they get upset because it's supposed to be an amenity. But I have barbecues in like 7 of the properties. And so I actually avoid putting barbecues now because number one, we can't do charcoal. And we do the propane tanks, and then the propane tanks run out, and it just becomes another like job for us to try to figure out when it's time to replace those. So if we can figure out a way to be like, hey, we'll fill it up for you, or we got an extra tank in the, I don't know, that's maybe an idea.
Yeah, Maddie, you got to put that in there. That's a good one. So you guys aren't essentially creating like a team. Like Rafa's talking about these propane tanks. You're not like putting together a team to work in conjunction with the cleaning crew. Like that would be something that we would have to do, but have the propane tanks locked somewhere where actually that would probably be really unsafe to have a bunch of propane tanks in one spot. Essentially, like I think what Rafa's thinking is like, and I like where his brain is going. So maybe this can something you guys can incorporate later on. I don't even know how you would do that, but basically have a team member that would go grab tank A, drop off tank A at apartment B, and then like so us as operators don't have to do that. Our cleaning crews don't have to do that. And I think that's a smart thing to do.
Yeah, we don't do that just yet. I mean, the co-hosts do, but only for electric bikes right now. But yeah, I mean, we can definitely open up co-host programs, but we need enough data to know that a lot of people would use it. So like for us, electric bikes was a no-brainer because everyone was asking for them. And they're like, but I don't know how to service or maintain an electric bike. I'm like, good, I have a team that can do that. And it was economical. It made sense. But yeah, we'd have to prove out the propane one a little more.
Yeah, no, it really is because, as operators now and as co-hosts and business owners, like Rafa has all those units with only 7. You only got 7, man. I have a barbecue pit at every single one of my properties, and it is a pain in the ass. Like we have two propane tanks at each unit, and one of them's done, the cleaner will go take it if they happen to do it that time, and you have to stay on the cleaners for this kind of stuff. But yeah, it just becomes a pain. So I think that would be kind of cool to create something based essentially to help the co-hosts or the operators itself eventually at some point. Maddie, like you've been doing this for 12 years now. Like, are you making money from it? Are you like starting to see the cash coming in?
Yeah, so we've been in kind of like private betas for the last year and a half. Learned so much. I mean, that's why we made like 8 pivots because we just didn't get it right in the beginning. But yeah, now we are just starting to open it up to more hosts, get people signed up. As I said, that feature will be launching in like a month. So then anyone out there that's listening can list an amenity. So we're starting to see kind of the plane take off in a sense. But, again, we're a startup. So we have VC or venture capitals backing us. And so I think a lot in that world, when you're a large startup, people push more for growth than they do profitability. And so they're like, don't build a small business, build one that's going to make me $1 billion. So I think there's a fine balance there too, which is something I'm learning. And it's interesting.
Venture capitalists, that's a whole weird segment in itself. Was that intimidating for you to sit on that boardroom, or I'm assuming it was probably Zoom, if it was during 2020? Was that intimidating to you to have that? Because it's pitching you guys is not like, it's not what you think it is. You can read every book on the planet until you actually do it in front of venture capitalists, and you probably sat with 1 billion of them until you found the right one. So take us through that whole process and what that felt like.
I mean, it's crazy because if you read on LinkedIn and you follow founders, they're pretty much posting, oh my gosh, I just raised $5 million and it took me a week. And I got all these huge name investors, including Jeff Bezos. And you're like, how on earth did you do that? And so that's kind of how I thought fundraising worked. I'm like, cool, I'm going to be able to do this in a week. I'm going to get, the big wigs of whatever, like Brian, the CEO of Airbnb, as an investor. And, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but everyone else is doing it. So it should be easy. That is just not reality at all. I failed the first 4 times I tried to fundraise. So I actively was talking to VCs, angel investors, and, I just didn't understand what the process was supposed to be, how you even ask people for money and what your pitch is supposed to be. And so I learned every time I failed, but I wasn't successful at raising money. And it wasn't until last year in November. And actually, we never announced this anywhere, so I don't even know if people know we raised money. But I did a startup accelerator. They really had me focus on my 5-minute pitch, which is something I would say all entrepreneurs should do. And then at that point too, I had a 2-year period of building my network of investors, because it was 2 years where I failed 4 times, but I had known all those investors. I was like, cool, you told me no now. That doesn't mean you're going to, I can ask you again in 6 months. There will have been progress made. So I kept, I want to say 200 investors in the loop over that 2-year period of how Mount was changing, what we were building. They saw my resilience. And so when I finally had this great idea, which is what Mount is right now, the software platform that turns things into rentable amenities, I had a solid 5-minute pitch, and I could communicate the vision of Mount to this, how we're going to get to a scalable, venture backable company in 5 years. That's when investors actually started to take me seriously and listen to what I had to say. And so, yeah, it was a 2-year process that paid off. But I had one of our investors who actually ended up investing in Mount told me no on 4 separate occasions. And then when I came back to them the 5th time with this new pitch, they're like, holy shit, you found it. This is totally venture backable. I've seen your resilience. I believe in you as a founder, and I'm going to take the bet. And so, I got him on the 5th try. But yeah, it was not a process in a week. I don't know who was able to do that, but it's weird asking people for money.
Yeah, it's never a comfortable thing. I love how you brought that up. Can you explain what a startup accelerator is?
Yes. And I actually, if this is the first time you're operating or running a business, I would suggest one, just because they really focus on the fundamentals. So basically, a startup accelerator is what it sounds. They'll take startups and accelerate you over a 12 to 14 week period where you're basically meeting with them pretty much. Typically, it's in person. COVID changed things a little. Where you go either to Silicon Valley, I was in Hawaii, New York, and you go live there, and you basically live in an office for that entire 8 to 12 week period. And you're going through the stages of building your startup. So you start with team, product market fit, fundraising. At the end, you pitch investors, and it gives you a really solid foundation. And so the reason I went through one was because this is the first time I founded a company right out of college, had no idea, I'd never run a business before. And so I needed those fundamentals, and I think it was actually quite helpful. And they give you a network too, which is really nice.
Yeah. What does that cost, Maddie? Is there a fee? Obviously it's probably a fee for that. It's almost like a tuition, I would assume.
Yeah, it really depends. So the startup accelerator I went through took 3% equity, and then they invested $25,000 right off the bat. So I didn't give them any money. I just gave them equity.
Wow. So they get to pick and choose who comes in there?
Yeah. So you do have to apply.
Got it. Okay. So not everybody's going through.
No. So the one I applied to, I think they said there were 600 startups that had applied, and they accepted 9.
Wow. That's pretty freaking great odds.
They are hard to get into. And the one I chose, and the reason I chose it was because it was very travel focused. Turnover B&B had gone through it. Hostfully had gone through it. And I'm like, all right, those are good people to be among. So
Yeah, for sure. So what did you walk out of there with? Like you probably obviously learned how to build a pro forma, look at revenue projections. Like what was the biggest takeaway from being in that? And would you, if you had to start over again, what you know now, would you do that again?
Yeah, so I did learn those things. The biggest thing for me though, like I'm a good pitcher, I can talk to people. That's not been a problem of mine. The problem of mine was conveying the vision, and just in a concise way where you build FOMO, and then at the end of it, you're in a place where the investor wants to invest. And I think that was something hard for me to grasp. And then also when I went into the startup accelerator, I had like 20 ideas of what Mount could be. And I was going in every direction. I'm like, oh, can we be asset management for hotels? Like, well, and the startup accelerator really had me focused. They're like, go talk to your customers and tell me what they want. And that's kind of how we were able to focus. I'd say when I went to the startup accelerator for the first week, I couldn't even convey what Mount was. I was so turned upside down. And they fixed me right up. It was great. So I would totally do it again. And they got me to a place where I could do my 5-minute pitch. And I have this video, so if anyone wants it, I will totally send it to you. But I got to a place where I did the 5-minute pitch. And at the end of it, the investors were like, I have my checkbook out now. I don't care what else you're going to say. I want to write the check because if I don't, I'm going to miss out on this massive opportunity. And that's something really hard to do, but the accelerator definitely helped.
Yeah, so they helped you basically put your ideas in order so that it sounds like a really good pitch to these people who had the money because you don't know how to explain it to them. They basically said, hey, this is how you're going to explain it. This is what you're going to do. This is how you're going to pitch it. This is how you're going to sell it. And this is what you have to really touch on. Don't start, explaining that you're going to attack hotels and 50 different people. Focus on your niche, your one customer. This is what you're going to be. Here's your 5-year plan for this. This is what you got to tell them. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And how do you get to $100 million in revenue?
Yeah. One of the things that I love that you said that everybody forgets, and it's the most basic fundamental portion of business. Ask the customer. Like how do we forget to do that? Like it's crazy. Like they're literally the people that and we're thinking of all these other things. We're just like, okay, we need to do this. We need to do this. Literally you go back to basic foundations. Like what does the customer think? And like, I think a lot of times as entrepreneurs, like we forget that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. No, I agree with that. And so a question I have for you guys, so if I'm allowed to ask,
Go ahead.
It's a little in a different direction, but with building your own businesses and stuff, because you guys are both managing and operating properties, have you found in the last like 6 months to a year that it's been more important to lean on like direct booking as opposed to the OTAs and building up your personal brand?
Yeah, I mean, I can take that big time. I've already got a direct booking website. So I actually have 2 direct book. Okay, to answer your question, the short answer before I go on this 20-minute rant, yes, it's extremely important. Okay, it's gotten to the point where you really need to if you want to stand out above everybody else. Number one, you don't want, if you're relying only on Airbnb, you don't want to be the one person relying on them because look what happened with their summer update, right? It screwed a lot of people over in a lot of areas. It helped a lot of people in a lot of different areas, right? But it shifted the entire market to vacation rental markets or specific experiences, which means that the people offering places to stay within the city for a different type of customers like business travelers, et cetera, they saw a big decrease in bookings, right? Well, if you've been growing your business over the last year or 2 years or whatever time you've been operating and you're collecting data and saving emails and saving contact information so that you can market directly to them, you need to have a place for them to be able to book. You can't just send them back to Airbnb, right? Or send them back to VRBO or booking.com or whatever it is that you're using, whatever OTA you're using. You need to have a website for them. And therefore, direct booking platforms become very important. Number 2, so right now I have 2 different platforms. That one where you can book directly, like if you Google my company, you can pull up any of my properties and book directly with me, right? The second one we're doing one so that we're actually accepting crypto now, right? So we're taking like Bitcoin, Solana, like all kinds of different cryptocurrencies now that are being implemented. But the second way is this number 2, what I'm trying to get at here is you got to be able to expand to the type of customers you're now advertising, which is why we're doing the crypto space now. There's a huge cult following with crypto people that have a ton of money laying around that can use it whenever they need to, right? And they want to be able to spend it in real life uses. So if you can expand your direct booking platform to not just only your target customer, but to a wide pool of variety of people that can come and use your platform, you're going to stand out above the rest rather than just having one direct booking website. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. That's super cool. So it's like you're all running, mini startups as well.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah, and you have to shift to being booked, outside of those ideas. Rafa's absolutely right. Like I do a lot of midterm stuff. That's kind of one of my niches. hate that word. And you can't just rely on Airbnb. Not only that, but you get paid more at the end of the day. And again, as business owners, our goal is to obviously make more money. And Airbnb's fees, they are what they are now. And as a professional operator, they actually charge 14% when you use, property management software. So, I mean, I manage other people's properties and I charge 25%. So I'm charging 25% plus the 13. So they're getting quite a bit of cash taken away from them. So at the end of the day, it's like, I need to make sure that I'm making up that extra 13% or 14%. And it's got to be through direct booking. I think it's the future of, booking, and it's super important and eventually maybe that's something you can think about, is that in your system, people are going to have access to everybody else in that market that's connected to you. They're going to be able to see all these properties that people could stay at. You almost obviously can kind of become a little OTA yourself with Mount. I mean, if you're forward thinking like that, I think that's potential too, where somebody can rent something and then see all your other co-hosts that are in the market, see the properties that are attached
definitely.
to them, something like that. Because again, Rafa's right. We can't just rely on, Airbnb and what their tweaks and changes are, because a lot of people are seeing a huge slowdown right now when it comes to short-term rentals. A lot of operators I talk to are running into the same thing. They're just like, hey, I'm seeing a slowdown. I'm not sure what it is. Is it people not traveling anymore? Are people just not staying? And there's like a factor of a bunch of different things that are happening. First off, there's a crap load of new people coming into the Airbnb space, which what I was talking about earlier to our original conversation is, these professional operators are adjusting and adapting, connecting with people just like you to make what they have already better. And they have to know, secondly, that what worked before isn't going to work in the future. So we have to be proactive in that sense and really start thinking ahead of the curve and be better and get booked off of those platforms. So I'm glad you brought that question up, Maddie, because not many people ask stuff like that.
You know what, too, Jesse and Maddie, not only that, it goes down to what we were talking about in the beginning where Jesse brought up, like the professional operator. In order for you to be an actual professional operator, you can't be running an Airbnb business. I talk about this all the time, right? We're not running an Airbnb business because we don't own Airbnb. All it is they're marketing for us. So how professional do you look? Like for me, that does a lot of rental arbitrage. Like how professional do you look if you show up to a landlord and you go, well, here's all my Airbnbs. They're going to be like, bro, is this like, are you even a legit company? Like insurance agencies. I have a lot of good referrals with insurance agencies because they come to my website and they look at it, right? I'm in all of their databases so that they can book my places. That's a direct booking, right? You don't look professional if you're going around and saying, oh, well, I have an Airbnb business and here's my 50 Airbnbs. I go around and I tell people, hey, I'm running a short-term rental business. Here are my short-term rentals available. Here's my website, right? nightandrain.com, strive.com or .io now. And now we're offering a bunch of different things. And people go, oh, well, you are legit. You have an actual business that you're running because now I'm not doing this as a side gig. So the direct booking side of things just naturally grows. And look, think about it. Even before Airbnb was around, right? Short-term rentals has been around for the beginning of time. And people were doing direct bookings to begin with. That's how they were bringing it. Airbnb just made it very easy for us to be able to start scaling and growing this business. Well, when you get to a certain point, you have to be able to go back to that old framework and start being able to bring in your own direct customers. Not only does it bring you more money, it makes you seem more legit, and it's going to help you on the off seasons, right? The slow times as well. So I know we went on a long one there, Maddie, but yes, absolutely. Direct bookings is huge.
Maddie, so we're coming up to the top of the hour. There's a couple things I want to segment in, but first I want to ask, what's next for Mount? Like what's next and you kind of gave us a sneak peek on what's happening. So kind of break that down for us, what the future is looking like in the next year or so.
Yeah, so tied to that sneak peek, expect a media storm from Mount in the next few months. We've made some really key hires we're going to announce. We want people listing their amenities, getting these co-host programs up and running. So once that button goes live on our website, that's really what we're going to be pushing. And that's essentially what's next. We're probably going to be taking in some more capital in the next year as well to help grow. And hopefully we'll hit, at least 20 new markets in the next year or so, or, maybe more, who knows?
So Maddie, I'm actually on your website right now and it actually already has the list an amenity button.
Yes, that's that'll just take you to a form to sign up. So that was my fast way of doing it. But no, the whole website's going to look completely different. We're doing a whole rebrand. And now, like in a month, when you click list an amenity, it will actually take you to the Rent Mount platform, have you list the amenity, and you can see when it goes live, who's renting it, all that stuff. So that's all the stuff that isn't there yet.
Got it. Okay. I love it. So we're getting to the top of the hour. So let's shift here to our two questions, Jesse. Or any final thoughts here? Any final says
No.
before we go?
Well, I just love that, you know, women entrepreneurs like yourself, Maddie, being so young, like coming into this space and really kind of paving the way. And I saw that like really early on in you. And I'm glad that VCs and other people see that drive in you. I mean, shit, you've been doing this since you were 12. So pat yourself on the back. And I know that as entrepreneurs, sometimes it's like you don't give yourself credit, but I hope that you sit back and reflect, especially after this conversation, that, you know, you're doing some really cool stuff. And not only that, but paving the way for other women entrepreneurs to see you in the space and create, you know, opportunity in that end. So kudos to you for having the vision at age 12. Cause I mean, at age 12, I was just playing baseball and riding skateboards, and you were creating locks and all this other cool shit. So kudos to you on that. And yeah, I'm excited for what you have going forward in the future.
Thank you.
Yeah, Maddie, you're
welcome.
crushing, man. Keep it up. Don't stop. I'm excited to where you're gonna go. So Maddie, tell us, being that this is the big break show, we want to know, what was your big break in life, business, entrepreneurship, whatever the case may be?
Yeah, honestly, I think one of the biggest ones, and I don't tell a lot of people this, but I was hit by a car when I was 16 years old, like as a pedestrian. And before that, I was just kind of happy go lucky. I was like, life is life. And then once I was hit by a car, I was hospitalized, had to learn how to rewalk and all that stuff. I think it gave me a new perspective and outlook on life. And I was like, all right, you know, I'm going to make my own destiny. I'm not going to wait for someone else to. And that's when I got really serious about this entrepreneurship stuff and was like, all right, I've always wanted to start my own company. Let's actually do it. And so it was a weird big break, but interesting life event that I think definitely shaped the future for, you know, a positive way.
Yeah, no, I love that. Thanks for sharing that. It's usually like when you come to a point where you realize, man, you know, there could be so much more. I can be so much bigger, right? Like that's really cool. I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah. Not only that, but it's a common theme on here, Maddie. It's like some life event or some kind of shift or mental thing that happens to somebody, and it's always like the dark side of life. And then all of a sudden through that is like where you break through and you're just like, holy crap, I'm limiting my potential. I thought this way before. Now, you know, probably since that incident, you look at life differently. You look at things probably more mindful. And, you know,
Absolutely.
Life has a weird way of kind of humbling us and bringing us back to our body in the present moment. And, you know, and I think that's changes a lot of perspective for a lot of people. You know, and people say this, like, things don't happen to us, they happen for us. And I've heard that before. And I really feel that to be true, especially in situations like what you have. And yeah, it's a cool story, and I'm glad you brought that up. I think that's something you should definitely talk about more, because it does bring light to a lot of things. So thanks for sharing that. Another quick thing, learn and apply. That is part of our segment here. So something that somebody has listened to you talk today about your entrepreneurship, an actionable step that somebody could take after listening to this episode. What's something that you could bring to the people?
Yeah, I mean, I think don't get complacent in your listing or product offering, and you know, you always got to be trying new stuff to beat out the competition. So that's what we're all about, making that guest experience unique, connecting to the locals. Don't give in to the big money people. And yeah, that would be an actionable step, would just, you know, go think about what can make your listing better, because there's definitely things that can.
Yeah, I love that. I think, Maddie, that we need to have a conversation, me and you or whoever you have that I can speak to about this, because you got like a lot of good stuff that I want to be able to implement now for real this time. Because I know
Absolutely. Yeah, you can talk to me.
Yeah, Maddie, so where can folks find you at?
You can get me on LinkedIn. I'm very active there. I think my name on LinkedIn, though, is Madison Rifkin. So if that's what you should look up. You can go to the website. It'll be changing and be even better. If you message on the website, you are actually messaging me, not a bot. So you can also find me that way.
What about on Instagram?
Yes, Instagram or Rent Mount. And I'm also Maddie Rifkin. No spaces or anything like that. So either one, it works as well.
Got you. Yeah, we'll put all your information in the show notes and description down below. Folks, if you guys listening to this now, like Maddie's been through quite an adventure at the age of 12. I mean, here she is now connecting with VCs. I mean, you're doing some really cool shit in this space, and it's going to help a lot of people like myself, independent operators, become better. And I think at the end of the day, that's where the goal, your vision eventually is. I think that's where it's at now, and you're starting to see that, and you're getting feedback from people. So folks, if you don't know Maddie, you should go follow her, check out all of her information. We'll put all the show notes down below. And for those of you that are listening and watching this, please like and share this. I think this was a great episode for other entrepreneurs to hear, especially women in this space. So Maddie, I mean, I'm super happy to have you on here. I'm thankful for your time, and I'm glad you're able to come on.
Yes, thanks for having me. It's been fun.
Yeah, Maddie, thanks for coming on. This was really an awesome conversation. And Matt, you like inspired me. You're really crushing it in the space, so keep it up. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks, Maddie.